Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Greetings, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the nation. I am delighted to have you. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Some woke female social media operator handling the Heckler & Koch, they're a firearms manufacturer, handling their Twitter account, went all pro-feminist, rah-rah, pro-woke, and Heckler & Koch has now put up a post on Twitter with a sign. It says, Heckler & Koch does not engage in identity politics. And underneath it, a policy was violated, changes were made. Good for them. That's how you handle business. Excellent. It's nice to see social media zealots be fired. Now, we got to move on. So I got to tell you, I run the risk of spending so much time on a particular topic that I bore you. But also, there is so much to discuss about the particular topic and so much new news about the particular topic that you need to pay attention to it. So the summer is coming. Winter came, the Night King died, and now summer is coming. And you've got to know that there are going to be problems. In fact, the headline is that we can expect blackouts this summer. The blackouts are coming in large part because we don't have enough of a power grid in the country anymore. It's things are not good. In fact, let me pull up this particular story. Yes, this is from what outlet? The Washington Post has this story. The headline is that fresh blackout threats emerge as power grid faces a stressful summer. And of course, as you could expect, the mid-Atlantic and southeastern states are the only areas of the country where the North American Electric Reliability Corporation is not warning of potential for outages and the threat of prolonged heat waves. But nationwide, the system is close to the edge. Now, why? The stability of the power grid is coming undone in large part because renewable energy. Renewable energy. The Washington Post goes through great pains to avoid having to say what is obvious. Let me just read you as they write it. The warnings are becoming an annual event. The stability that once underpinned the country's power system has dissolved under the stress of heat domes and hurricanes precipitated by climate change. A lack of investment in the fragile collection of transfer stations and transmission lines that keep lights on and air conditioners humming is compounding the problem. The findings are sure to rekindle debate about the energy transition and the extent to which initiatives to curb climate change are stressing the national network of electricity systems. They come only days after the Biden administration unveiled a new aggressive plan to lower emissions at power plants, which opponents charge will further erode grid stability. Now, I want to go back to a key issue. Let me read you this paragraph or this sentence one more time. The stability that once underpinned the country's power system has dissolved under the stress of heat domes and hurricanes. Heat domes and hurricanes. If it were really the hurricanes causing the problem, why is it that the North American Electric Reliability Corporation is not warning of potentials for outages in the southeast United States? I mean, the Southeast is where the hurricanes hit. Y'all know that, right? The Southeast is what? Alabama, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, maybe throw in Mississippi, North Carolina. That's where the hurricanes hit. I mean, it's like trailer park for hurricanes. The hurricanes hit the Southeast United States. They're not hitting Alaska. They're not hitting Montana. Rarely are they hitting New York. They're not hitting Ohio. And so the Washington Post wants you to believe that the hurricanes are causing the problem, and yet the part of the country most prone to be hit with hurricanes is less prone to power outages than the rest of the country. I suspect that has to do with the power systems in the Southeast, because in the Southeast, y'all from Phoenix and Tucson may not know this. Those of you listening over my Las Vegas affiliate may not know this, but in the Southeast, there's this thing. It grows out of the ground. It gets very tall. It's called a tree. And on the trees, they have these things called branches. And on the branches, they have these little green things. They're called leaves. And those leaves cause shadows on the ground. Those leaves are like little solar panels for the trees, and they absorb the sunlight, and they suck up carbon dioxide, and they emit oxygen. And they cause shadows on the ground. So in the Southeast United States, unlike Phoenix and Tucson, unlike Las Vegas, there isn't a lot of land available for solar panels. So we have nuclear power, and we have natural gas plants, and we have coal-burning fossil fuel plants. Now, there is some solar power. There is some. But like, it's been cloudy here where I am the last several days. In fact, I'm looking out my window right now. You can see it behind me, one of the windows behind me. If you're looking on the video, it is cloudy. Cloudy enough that the solar panels aren't functioning very efficiently. And that's a problem in the Southeast, is we have these things called clouds, and we have this stuff that comes out of the sky called rain. And the solar panels don't work. Now, we don't have a lot of wind farms in the Southeast. They have some off the coast, but we don't have a lot of wind farms down here. We have natural gas, we got coal, we got nuclear. Georgia's building the only existing nuclear power project in the nation, and it just started producing power, I believe. And it's producing power for the Southeast. So surprise, surprise, surprise. The part of the country that has a lot of base load power, that is the Southeast United States, is the part of the country that when the heat wave comes, and by the way, the NOAA, that is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, just released their projections for the summer. You got an El Nino effect. And that means that the South is expected to have more rain and hotter temperatures. So it's going to be above average temperatures and above average rainfall in the Southeast, which means the solar panels are going to suck even more. And it's going to be hot. And they're not expecting the power to go out. Why? Because we have base load power. We're not relying on solar and wind in the Southeast. But then for those of you who want to expand your power outlet, this should outrage you. The United States fast-tracked a power project, the SunZia project, a massive power line and wind farm in the western United States. The federal government fast-tracked it. Do you know how long it took for this new wind farm and massive power line to get approval? It was fast-tracked. It was fast-tracked by the federal government. Can you guess what it meant to be fast-tracked? How long it took it to get approved? 17 years. The 17-year process, this is from the Wall Street Journal, the 17-year process underscores why some in Washington say we got to overhaul the rules. The Interior Department's Bureau of Land Management gave the green light on Thursday. for a high voltage power line. Their permit allows the developer, Pattern Energy, to build the country's largest wind energy project across 3 counties in rural New Mexico and deliver the electricity to large markets in Arizona and California. Developers applied for the federal approval in 2008. Environmental reviews started in 2009. In 2011, the Obama administration fast-tracked it. David Getz, general manager of Phoenix-based Southwestern Power Group, the original developer of SunZia, said that when the project was conceived in 2006, the company thought it would receive permits in 5 years. The system is flawed. The labyrinthine state, local, and federal permitting processes are drawn out for years. The environmental review took 4.5 years. You know, Joe Manchin wanted the permitting process sped up. He put it in the Inflation Reduction Act, which turned out to be the Green New Deal. Wanted it sped up. But the Democrats are balking at the environmental review process. They don't want to speed up the environmental review process. So they want us to have more power. They want us to put in more solar panels, but they don't want to speed up the review. The energy grid is falling behind. It's not being upgraded, and now they're warning about nationwide blackouts this coming summer. And it has everything to do with the Democrats, the Democratic environmental policies. The only part of the country not at risk of rolling blackouts this summer is the Southeast United States, because they have so many coal-powered plants, natural gas power plants, and nuclear plants in the country, and everybody else is transitioning to green energy. And the result is that you all, everywhere outside the Southeast, are going to have the power go out in heat waves this summer. Me? I'll be enjoying my lights being on. The rest of you, stay where you are. We already got too many people in the Southeast. Instead, you need to fight for common sense power grid reform that your Democratic legislators, governors, and congressional leaders don't want you to have. They want you in the blackouts because it's good for Mother Earth. I keep having friends tell me they realized I was right. Every time you wash sheets from Boll & Branch, they get softer and softer. They're the most luxurious sheets. The highest quality, incredible craftsmanship with just unmatched softness. 100% traceable organic cotton. It gets softer with every wash. I tell you guys that it's true. I can tell you it's a big difference. And I have bought different pairs of sheets to try to find some best. I keep coming back to my Boll & Branch sheets. They're incredible. They're buttery to the touch, super breathable. They're perfect for cooler weather and warmer weather. Why? The drape. You actually feel like you've got something of substance on you so you can snuggle in, but you don't get overwhelmingly hot during the summertime, and it's just the perfect weight under the blanket as well during the wintertime. I love Boll & Branch sheets. They're so luxurious. They're loved by 4 U.S. presidents. Got over 10,000 raving reviews. Right now, get 15% off your first order when you use promo code ERIC, E-R-I-C-K, at bollandbranch.com. That's Boll & Branch, B-O-L-L-A-N-D, branch.com. The promo code is ERIC, E-R-I-C-K. Exclusions apply. See site for details. Yo, so earlier in the show, I was talking about the basics and how the government doesn't get the basics right. And this is a bipartisan issue. The government does not get the basics right. Well, the Democrats are having a hard time getting the basics right for Joe Biden. Listen to this. This is from the Politico. 2 Democrats are scrambling for ways to avoid, or top Democrats, not 2, top Democrats are scrambling for ways to avoid a catastrophe in New Hampshire in which Joe Biden may not appear on the primary ballot. The bizarre predicament is one of the president's own making. He pushed for changes to the party's presidential nominating calendar that stripped New Hampshire of its first-in-the-nation primary. The move was designed to reward South Carolina, but there's a state law requiring New Hampshire's contest be held a week before any other. And Republicans in charge of the governor's office and the state legislature will not touch it. If they don't change it, a primary may well be held without the sitting president putting his name on the ballot. Now national Democrats are searching for an off-ramp. With a June deadline looming for New Hampshire to make progress on changing its law or get kicked out of the official early voting lineup, Democratic National Committee members are privately considering giving the state more time. Some have floated the possibility of putting together a party-run primary to get around its state law. In states where state legislatures have refused to comply with the party rules, the state parties have run primaries that are conducted by the party, says James Roosevelt Jr., co-chair of the DNC's Rules and Bylaw Committee. But New Hampshire Democrats, furious that National Party leaders upended their primary, don't seem to care what the DNC has to offer. They say they're going first with or without Joe Biden, the president of the United States, the incumbent sitting president of the United States of America, may be left off the ballot of the first primary in the first state primary because of his dogmatic insistence that South Carolina go first. New Hampshire Republicans are not going to change the law. The New Hampshire Democrats aren't going to change the law. This is their prize. The Democrats and Republicans did it to themselves. So here's how this will work is South Carolina sets its primary for January 2nd, 2024. New Hampshire's law says its primary's got to be 2 weeks before that. So it literally will bump itself up by 2 weeks and happen in 2023 if that's what South Carolina does. By the law in New Hampshire, it has to do that. The Secretary of State there has no choice. The Democrats should have known better than to try to convince Republicans to change it. Same thing happened in Georgia. The Democrats went to Georgia and thought that they'd get Brad Raffensperger, Republican Secretary of State, to change the Georgia primary process for the presidential race. He said no deal. Now, I personally think it should have come earlier. It makes my state a little more valuable in the primary process, but he didn't. And no one was going to make him do it. And the Democrats just thought if they went and groveled and said, please, change the date, he would do it. No, he wasn't going to do it. This is obvious. They've set Joe Biden up to not be on it. And, it gives an opening to Robert Kennedy Jr. and Marianne Williamson. They can go qualify for the New Hampshire ballot, and they can get all the delegates. Jean Shaheen, she's a U.S. senator from New Hampshire. She's blowing up the DNC over this. This is her exact quote. "We are not going to leave New Hampshire and the primary to the Republicans. I do not care what the Democratic National Committee says." They did this to themselves. And now what they're trying to do is give New Hampshire more time to convince the Republicans in New Hampshire that they really pretty please ought to change the date of the primary. They ought to change the law to help Joe Biden. The governor of New Hampshire, Sununu, says it's not going to happen. So it is very likely that the Democrats will hold their primary in New Hampshire, and Marianne Williamson and Robert Kennedy Jr. will be on the ballot, and Joe Biden will not be on the ballot. Crazy times up there. Now, what's crazy is also the stock market, which is why you should call Advantage Gold at 800-450-2566. See if they can help you. Get into gold and silver. If you have any interest in using precious metals as part of your portfolio to deal with inflation, the topsy-turvy stock market, geopolitical events, Advantage Gold might be able to help you. Your 401k and your IRA, if they use precious metals, there are rules that the IRS puts forward on how you got to store the precious metals. You can get a free gold IRA investment kit from Advantage Gold, and they can work you through it. They're not a gimmicky company. They play it straight. They want to give you straight answers. And their theory is that if they just play it straight and make you smarter about the process, you'll stick with them when it comes time to buy in the precious metals. You can call them at 800-450-2566. Tell them I sent you. Get the free gold IRA investment kit, but get educated on the issue. If you have any interest at all, if you're slightly curious, they're the people to deal with. They're TrustLink's #1 highest rated precious metal company for 7 years in a row. Your 401k, your IRA, your general investment portfolio, they can help you in all those areas. 800-450-2566. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be a part of the program, very happy to have you be on the show. I got to play you some audio. Cori Bush. She's one of two Democrats in the House to vote against a resolution honoring fallen police officers. And this is Cori Bush.
The United States has a moral and legal obligation to provide reparations for the enslavement of Africans. Black people in our country cannot wait any longer for our government to begin addressing each and every one of the extraordinary bits of harm, all of the harm it has caused since the founding.
Got that? Democrats are really diving into the issue of reparations over slavery. Now, they want a payout. Democrats do. They want it to be about money. San Francisco can't afford it under the scheme that it's come up with. California can't afford it. Gavin Newsom walking away from the financial requirements, saying he's going to find other ways. Problem, of course, is that in the country, the Constitution doesn't allow you to treat people differently. So if you're given black people payment of some kind or special privileges, you're probably going to have to give other people that. The Supreme Court right now is considering a case on affirmative action in colleges, and it sounds like it's probably going to die. There's a lot of talk from Democrats about reparations for slavery. What they ignore is a number. 642,427. 642,427. The people who want to talk about reparations ignore that number. They do not want to talk about that number. They deflect from that number. They refuse to consider that number. They find ways to justify around that number. They've got to avoid that number, 642,427. That is the number of Union soldiers killed in the Civil War to liberate slaves. 110,100 killed in battle. 224,580 killed of disease. 275,174 wounded in action. So I said killed, 642,427. That's casualties, wounded or killed. There are estimated to be, some conflate the deaths together. It was 360,222 Union deaths. When you take into account the people killed in action and the people wounded in action who then got diseases and die, it winds up being 360,222 according to the History Channel. The U.S. Park Service says that the total Union casualties, that is killed, dead of disease or wounded, is 642,427. You pick your number. Pick your number. The reality is a lot of Union soldiers, overwhelmingly white, died in the Civil War to free the slaves. That's just truth. And there are your reparations. The reparations were paid in blood. I know it's not popular to talk about. I know Democrats want to avoid talking about it. I know progressives demand a payment of money, but the payment of reparations for slavery in this country was done in blood. The Battle Hymn of the Republic, the original line at the end was that he died, so he died to make men holy. Let us die to make men free. It was changed to let us live to make men free. The original draft of it was Christ died to make men holy. Let's die to make men free. There are your reparations. Men died for the freedom of slaves. The country is not perfect. The country has never been perfect. But there's been this revisionist history led by the New York Times and the 1619 Project to repackage American history to claim that the United States was founded for the preservation of slavery. It's not actually true. In fact, the New England states that came into the Union passed abolitionist measures before Great Britain did. That is a statement of fact. Thomas Jefferson in writing the Declaration of Independence, his original drafts wanted to make it clear that slavery was no longer welcome in the country. It was changed over time. They needed the southern states to go along with it. Jefferson himself had a very complicated history about slavery, but wrote repeatedly to people that they were going to have to deal with the freedom of slaves. And there were multiple issues on how to deal with it. You know, the capital of Nigeria is called Monrovia, or Liberia rather, is Monrovia, named after James Monroe. One of the ideas hatched was to send the slaves back to Africa, and they set up a colony there in Liberia. Yes, Liberty, Liberia, Monrovia for James Monroe. We have that history there. Their flag looks like the American flag, stars and stripes. But the bottom line is for people like Cori Bush, she can stir the pot. She can demand reparations, but she can't get them. The weird thing to me is how we've had the first black president. We've got now the first black vice president. And all of a sudden, everyone thinks race in this country is worse than it ever has been. No, it's been far worse. Where I am sitting right now, I'm in Middle Georgia. And 3 blocks over from me is something called Terminal Station. If you go into Terminal Station, you'll see the coloreds only and whites only bathrooms, the whites only water fountain and the colored water fountain. You'll see them. The signs are still there. What's so notable is that when I was on the city council here in Macon, Georgia, for a number of years, it was transplants, Yankee white transplants. Liberals would come in, they'd be so offended, they demand the city council get rid of the signage. They wanted to strip the colored water fountain sign and the colored bathroom sign and the whites only signs and the white segregated sitting rooms in the terminal station. They want to get rid of them. It was the black civic leaders who said, no, we want them here because we want people to see what it used to be like. They wanted to be able to take school kids into Terminal Station and show them what real racism looked like. Nowadays, you got to find the microaggression. Whatever the hell a microaggression is, there's your racism now. We're now told, well, yes, we got rid of that stuff. We no longer have the colored water fountain and the whites only water fountain and people sitting in the back of the bus based on their skin color, but we're systemically racist. Somehow we've been able to get rid of all of that and elect the first black president of the United States, but we are systemically racist. And so we need money. You're not getting the money. You got the blood of 642,427 Union soldiers who either got killed or wounded fighting for the freedom of slaves that you want to ignore. One of the most perverse arguments I've heard is that, well, those people were they were racist anyway, so didn't really count. Counted enough to get you your freedom. There are people who just want to stir the pot. Happens on both sides. Got these white nationalist guys trying to embitter people who are white, claiming that, well, the Mexicans are coming for your jobs. Not really. You didn't want that job anyway. Trying to inflame your racist sentiment. It is funny how you go far left and you go far right, you meet the same people. They're all a bunch of racists fanning flames. The rest of us got to stand up to the nonsense. California has been hijacked. Even Gavin Newsom, though, is starting to walk it back. Gavin Newsom was all about this racial reconciliation commission out there studying reparations until they came up with a price tag, and it's billions of dollars more than the total California budget. It's like $300 billion. The California budget isn't even a quarter of that. And they're like, there's no way we can do this. Sorry. Who qualifies? Who does the genealogy? Who covers the costs? None of it makes sense, except they can keep saying it. And they can keep saying it to stir the pot, to cause division, to cause strife, to disunite the country, to tear us apart. We had the first black president of the United States. We got black people on the United States Supreme Court. We got the first black vice president of the United States. Do we still have a ways to go? Darn right we do. Yes, we've got a ways to go. But is it better than it was when we had whites-only water fountains and colored-only water fountains and whites-only sitting rooms and black-only sitting rooms? Yes, we're way better than that too. time heals all wounds. What these people don't want is for time to heal this wound, because then their shakedown scheme and their financial scheme to get more money from white guilt is going to go away. We're always going to have racists because it's a sin. We'll always have sinners. Doesn't mean the nation is racist. The nation that elected Barack Obama is not a racist nation. It is deeply ironic, however, that once he got elected, the race hustlers and the race baiters started up. And I really do believe it has to do with they realize that their good times are coming to an end. They're not going to be able to cash in on racist sentiment in the country and racial strife in the country. You got the first black president of the United States. It means the country has really progressed. So they've had to fan the flames and scratch the scabs and open the wounds, because otherwise their payday's over. And that is ultimately what all of this is about, is it not? It's about a payday. It's about a payday. Cori Bush doesn't get elected if those grievances go away. Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and Black Lives Matters, they don't make a ton of money if the hostility goes away. So they got to keep the hostility fanned. They got to fan the flames of hatred in the country. And they've got to ignore the 642,427 soldiers in the Civil War from the Union who were killed, got diseases and died, or wounded in action. They've got to ignore the dead to fan the flames. Now, a great group that fights back on all this sort of nonsense is Patriot Mobile, and all you got to do is move your cell phone service to them. Literally, just move your service to to Patriot Mobile, and they fight for the conservative causes you care about. They fight against these nonsensical reparation sentiments from the wokes. They fight against the wokes on school board. They advance the Second Amendment, the pro-life movement, conservatives around the country. And in doing so, they use the same cell towers everybody else uses. All you got to do is take your cell service to them. You get guaranteed great service. They use the same cell towers you're probably already using. What you do is you go to patriotmobile.com/Eric, patriotmobile.com/ERICK, or you call them and tell them I sent you. You get free activation. If you call them at 972-PATRIOT, you're talking to someone in the United States. They have 100% U.S.-based customer service. If you go to patriotmobile.com/Eric, you can click on their coverage map and see down to your house just how good the coverage is. 5G data voice, they got it all. You can even move your existing cell phone to them, so you don't even have to change your phone number. You just go to patriotmobile.com/Eric or call them 972-PATRIOT. Yes, you can, and you should text DATA to 33777 and get the daily email. Yes, you should. I think it's worth it, and particularly today, talking about the foreign policies if no one else is covering. Right now, though, David, you're going to be up next. Welcome, David.
Hey, Eric, how are you?
Good. What's going on?
Well, usually I listen to your show because I just like getting balance. I'm not getting it today. It's kind of one of the first times I've listened to you and said, he's a conservative. I'm a conservative, but I'm a conservative Democrat, and that's very possible, but that's okay. And I'm also a descendant of black slaves. All right, so let me tell you my story about the Union soldiers. My great-grandfather was a Union soldier. He was a free man who left Philadelphia and joined and volunteered to fight for the freedom. All right. I was saying, when you were talking about the people who died, those are not the people who were paying reparations. Blood does not pay back for labor. Labor goes like this: a fair day's pay for a fair day work. If there was labor for free, then you can never pay it back just because someone went and sacrificed to get you out of that bad situation. The money and the profits and the assets and the things that were earned from that labor is what must be paid back. It's a very simple process, and it's in the Bible. You're a Christian, I'm a Christian. If you go to Jeremiah, I believe it's 35. If you go to Malachi, God curses lands because they didn't pay the slaves. They didn't provide for the hireling. All that labor for 300 years or 350, it's debatable, whatever the number you want to use.
So now, hang on a second. If we're going to use the Bible, I mean, Christ died for all of us, and it was his shedding of blood that liberated all of us from the bondage of sin. So if those Union soldiers hadn't died, 300,000 of them, 627,000 total casualties, the slaves would not have gotten free. So very literally, their shedding of blood freed the slaves. I mean, Christ was a reparation for the fall. I mean, the Union soldiers shedding of blood liberated the slaves. To retroactively
that's an equivalence I can agree with. The shedding of blood I can agree with. That has nothing to do with the pay for the labor. So you can't you turned off the clock when you shedded the blood and you freed them. No more free labor. Woo! Okay, it's over. Yippee. But what about all the profits? And again, the main thing that I think white America has the problem with is you think I'm taking money out of your pocket. And I'm not saying as black descendants of slaves, we're not saying you owe us anything. You do not. But the GDP of this country is $23 trillion now. What we're saying is if you didn't pay a fair day's pay for a fair day's work, then all of that, a lot of that money that's $23 trillion worth of value for the country, some of that has to be coming back to the millions of slaves. But
it's hang on a second. You have a job right now?
I'm retired right now.
Okay, did you work in government or the private sector?
I worked in private sector.
Okay, so you worked in a private sector where you benefited from the GDP of the country. You benefited from the GDP. You contributed to it and took from the GDP. And had those Union soldiers not died on the battlefield 150 years ago to free your ancestors, you would not have benefited from the GDP of the country today. I mean, in fact, inarguably, all of the economic data shows that the free market system generates greater GDP than a servitude or mercantilist GDP in the past. So by liberating the slaves and shedding their blood to do so, they generated a GDP creating a free market system, brought down the servitude economics of the South, created a GDP that you yourself have benefited from already. And now you want additional money from the privates or from the taxpayer. You say you don't want it from me, but if you get it from the government, you're getting it from me. If you're drawing it from the private sector, you're drawing it from me because I pay into the private sector, which grows the GDP. So either way, you're trying to get something which, had those Union soldiers not died on the Civil War battlefield, you would not be entitled to. We're going to agree to disagree on this one. But to say that the shedding of blood was meaningless to what you're owed, you wouldn't be getting what you've got today in the greatest country on the planet, but for the shedding of blood. That was the reparation. And the math doesn't work anyway for any sort of financial reparation. But those people died to set people free.
For the ones who work hard to ensure their crew can always go the extra mile, and the ones who get in early so everyone can go home on time, there's Grainger, offering professional-grade supplies backed by product experts so you can quickly and easily find what you need. Plus, you can count on access to a committed team ready to go the extra mile for you. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.